Hello, and welcome to everyone who's watching. Pleased to be speaking with author Pajtim Statovci today. Thank you to Literati Bookstore for setting up this interview. I would also like to thank the Consulate General of Finland in New York for their support. My name is Kalle Mattila. I'm a Finnish essayist living in New York, and it is my pleasure to introduce Pajtim Statovci. Pajtim Statovci was born in Kosovo to Albanian parents in 1990. His family fled the Yugoslav wars and moved to Finland when he was 2 years old. He holds an MA in comparative literature and is a PhD candidate at the University of Helsinki. His first book, My Cat Yugoslavia, won the Helsingin Sanomat Literature Prize for Best Debut Novel. His second novel, Crossing, was a finalist for the National Book Award, and Bolla was awarded Finland's highest literary honor, the Finlandia Prize. In 2018, he received the Helsinki Writer of the Year award. Bolla is a symbolic novel about war, passion, and mental illness. It begins in Kosovo in 1995, a time that was deeply hostile to Albanians, and the novel follows a young Albanian man, Arsim, an aspiring writer, a university student who's recently married, Oishe. One day, he meets a young man, a Serb named Miloš, and he begins a secret affair with him. Because of the political situation and the looming Kosovo war, the two are separated soon after they meet. Arsim moves abroad with his young family, and Miloš is, well, a mystery, really. So, Pajtim, let's start with the title of the book, Bolla. What does it mean? What are its origins?
Thank you, Kalle, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. And so yes, Bolla is this demonic serpent in Albanian mythology. It's this type of a snake or a dragon or both. The legend has it that it becomes this fire-breathing winged multi-headed dragon once a year for one day when it's set free to live among people. And during that day, it ruthlessly kills and causes havoc. And for all the other days, it is hiding and waiting for its chance to appear again. And this word has other meanings too, depending on who you ask and where. But in this book, I wanted to recreate and reinterpret some of the myths and stories I heard about this creature when I was a child. In fact, for a very, very long time, I was afraid of snakes, terrified actually, and this specific creature too, because I was told these terrible and scary stories about it. And I also remember a family member once saying that this creature causes thunderstorms and wars and natural disasters, and that if you encounter this creature somewhere, you will become permanently blind and so on. And so in this story, this creature has a symbolic, more of a metaphorical meaning, because I'm reinterpreting it all the time. So as the story is about people who spend their entire lives being afraid of something, they spend their entire lives in hiding from other people and from each other, and including themselves. So they are sort of images of this creature, maybe feared for the wrong reasons in the same way as the creature is.
Very fascinating. And so what led you to write this book?
Madness, like I'm kidding. It's I think that every author needs a little bit of crazy, you know. I mean, I have been plagued by this creature for my entire childhood, and about 10 years ago, the first pages of this novel were born. There's this drawing in the novel that is included on the page that I'd like to show you. I hope it looks like something in the camera. Yeah, but it's so this is a drawing that I drew when I was a kid. And of course, it's not the same because this has been edited by a graphic designer quite a bit to fit the with the page here. But as unbelievable as it sounds, when I drew this picture of this creature that I was afraid, I think that was the starting point of this book, actually. And even though I don't remember the exact moment when I drew this, but for some reason I feel like this picture just encapsulates the emotional storm of this story. Or maybe it's just me, because some readers have thought that a child has drawn it into their copy while they were at the bookstore, buying or picking up this book. But I mean, these legends and this story of this very unfamiliar, unknown creature has just been something that I've been it has bothered me quite a bit. So this whole novel was like an attempt to make sense of the creature and what has come to my life along with it.
Very interesting. So let's dive deeper into the book. Let's talk about the characters. All of them are very complex. If we start with Arsen, for instance, the first person narrator, he's an unusual narrator. He's not your typical hero. And there's an interesting juxtaposition between his life and then his actions. He's very emotional and sensitive, but he doesn't seem like that to the outside eye. Could you talk a little bit more about him?
Yes, I mean, with this book especially, I really wanted to challenge myself as a writer. And one of the challenges was writing a story about people that are, as you say, far from simple. So what brought me to this main character was, in the end, a certain realness of this character. It's no secret, and I've talked about this in interviews, that I have grown up in an environment where people like Arsim were not at all unfamiliar or a rare sight. And I'm not saying that he's this bad, sinful man who doesn't deserve, forgiveness. To some extent, I think that he is that too. But then again, I don't believe that you are born evil. And that is one question I wanted to chase in this book. Things are never simple, and in this book there are no easy solutions, no easy people, no straightforward thinking. On the contrary, but I mean, for reasons that are also partly personal to me, I needed to explore this person's mind in attempt to see him, or someone like him, more clearly or with more empathy, so that it would make more sense to me, so that I would understand and be able to forgive better. I just needed to study what has driven this person in this position to become so lost and broken and so flawed. And this character, creating this character, has been hands down one of the hardest things in my whole writing career. I tried to write him, I tried to find his voice many times, but after failing numerous times, I had to just start over and just reject some unwritten and basic rules of writing, such as having a main character that has the reader in his corner, every step of the way. And after I did that, I started getting somewhere, because now I could write without fear of judgment, and I things started going. And because one of the things that is most important to me about this book is to show that a catharsis doesn't always look like, happiness and peace and love. And I think that this character comes understandable and relatable in his own way. And there's a lot of kindness and goodness in this story too, among the darkness and desperation, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's I already forgot about your question, but maybe that's
You answered it really well. That was a good introduction to the protagonist. So,
Yeah, I mean, but
um,
it's also it's readers often say to me that and I'm sorry to interrupt you, by the way. It's something I want to add. It's it's readers often say that they wish that my book would be more my books would be more positive, which often confuses me because I think that an open ending in which a character has found just one small piece of his own broken puzzle is enough, and I think that then there's more room to grow. There's more room for the story to continue in the reader's mind. For example, the ending of this book, when we can talk about this later, but if I would have gone back to Oisha after she had done what she did in the end of the book, then her ending wouldn't have felt so complete as it did when all is just left like it is in the end, and when she just gets to be set free, and then nothing is told about her after that.
and that's a great sort of passageway onto Oisha. So, Arsim's wife, who, like you say, is also very complex as a character. Um, and what's interesting about Oisha is that she seems to have this kind of never-ending acceptance, understanding, patience, but then abruptly it ends. And it's as if she reaches her limit, not because her husband is abusive towards her, but because Arsim gets a public sentence for a crime. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's losing your face and your honor and your dignity is one of the worst things that can happen you in Kosovo, because it is very much a, a shame culture in a way. And I think that in Bolla, this is depicted in a more subtle tone than in my previous books. As you say, it's at first Oisha seems that she's the only responsible, sane person in this novel, but as the story progresses, the facade begins to crack a little bit, and suddenly these things that she said uh, are not bothering her start bothering her, and she shows a side of herself that is a bit disruptive and a little dismissive and judgmental too. And so I wanted to show that what has happened to her because of Arsim has completely broken her spirit and her ability to feel acceptance and understanding towards other people. So these circumstances have led her to lose who she once was. And I'd like to read a chapter, if I may, from Bola about this particular section. So it's in this chapter, Arsim is sent to prison in the unnamed European country where the family flees the war, and during his first night in jail, he recollects their time watching the news from distance, following the war through the television and radio. Then the lights are switched off, and I hear a lock turn, the fading echo of footsteps. It makes me remember the war years, the days and nights that Oishe and I spent in front of the television or radio. Those moments that disquiet stole from us, those moments when we were watching the news, one story more desperate than the last, the taste of iron in our mouths. And whenever someone died, whenever a bomb exploded, a house burned down, a building, a village, whenever a gun went off, the silence between us was God stepping into the room. And then we prayed to him, to the God in our house house far from home, the God we barely believed in anymore. We asked him, please save the two of us. Let that body be someone else's sister, someone else's father, brother, cousin. And when he finally replied to our prayers and saved us, and someone else's sister was violently raped, Someone else's brother was murdered. Unfamiliar villages were razed to the ground. We felt relieved, lighter somehow, if only for a moment, and Oisha asked, "Do you think we are bad people, you and I, for hoping and thinking and feeling things like this?" I couldn't answer her because I didn't know what was acceptable or natural to feel during a war. But I guess it's one thing to hope these things don't happen to you, and another to wish them on other people. This continued for weeks, months, years after the war had ended. Regret caught in the throat, rose up to the mouth like potent bile. Its taste wouldn't go away. And guilt took hold of the eyes, making everything its slave. And God wouldn't leave our house either, but wandered from room to room in the air that flowed through the apartment. He hid behind our belongings, concealed in cupboards, lurked between the sheets and inside a newly acquired dishwasher, left his role as answerer of prayers and turned into questions we asked ourselves every day in front of the mirror, but never dared ask each other. During that time, how could Oisha concentrate on what our children were saying, on cooking dinner, cleaning, constantly washing laundry and scrubbing the bathroom? How did she have the energy to open her mouth, get dressed, and take a shower? How did she have the strength to answer their endless questions? On one occasion, Oisha heard that her cousin had given birth in the middle of the woods, where she and her family had fled. She lost a lot of blood, Oisha said, but she'll be fine. The Serbs will never find them in the woods. They'll never get their hands on that child. At times, I was envious of her and felt a sense of inferiority at being unable to act in the way she did. I often wondered whether she behaved like this out of sheer lack of emotion or because it was easier to feign indifference, to wake up in the morning, go about her chores, and go to bed lying to herself that what was happening in our homeland wasn't really true, that it was happening somewhere far beyond these walls, to the people we no longer were. Perhaps she was so tired of violence that she'd become immune to it, that witnessing and experiencing it no longer felt like anything at all.
Beautiful passage. So we've been introduced now to the two main characters, and then there's a third one, Milosh, and he's more of a mystery. Who is this man? Where has he been really? And he's presented to the reader through these very sort of short, hectic, poetic journal entries that contain a lot of violent thoughts, things that may or may not have happened. Can you talk a little bit more about the sort of birth of that narrative form and that style of writing in the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's oftentimes when you experience trauma that is this severe and this all-consuming, your reality just shatters. Suddenly, your memories become completely unreliable, and we are in a way lost from ourselves, sometimes permanently. And I wanted to capture this 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 um, this this puzzle. So the lying in the entries and how nonsensical and non-linear and how disorganized the writing is in these journal entries is really just a symptom of a trauma that doesn't go away. So, and it was also very freeing to me to write about trauma in this way, you know, without a need for the trauma to exit, without a need to get to the root of it or to get rid of it. So all of the characters in this book are so traumatized by their personal experiences and by the war, so that they keep in a way reliving their traumatic past, battling with guilt and shame and having continuous nightmares and never really getting over them. And this too, the reason behind this solution is because this too felt more real than a plot line where, okay, you seek for help and then you go get it and see a therapist, and then you just learn learn to live with that, with what has happened to you. And it's not that easy, and you can't adapt that for all traumas, and it's not that simple for everyone. And especially during this day and age, we're constantly told that we are responsible for our own mental well-being, and it's almost as if it's so individualistic. You're required to like push yourself and to be better and achieve and whatnot. But it's as I if it would be so, the solution to be the best version of yourself would be so easy, I think everyone would use that, you know. So
Absolutely. That's a really crucial point. And I love how it adds to the structure of the book as well. It makes it really interesting, those sort of episodic moments. So although this book contains a lot of violence, it's also a very hopeful novel. How did you manage to balance those two things?
I think it sort of came automatically in a way, because um, well, not actually erase that. What I wanted to say with this book is that for a lot of people, many of the things that happen in this book are a part of everyday life, have always been, and will always be in large numbers of areas in the world. And that's just a fact. And I think that my conscious decision not to avoid it, but to look at the violence straight in the eye, made this book grow into a moral consideration of good and evil, and 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 right and wrong. And this book, I think, more than being violent, asks questions like, how much can you be forgived for, and under which circumstances? How much can you understand someone's actions? Are there, borders that you just cannot cross? And what happens if you decide or have to cross these borders anyway, and due to the environment not allowing you to act better? And what happens then? I wanted to ask, do you lose your right to happiness and peace? And for example, the father of this, the Arsim, who then he has 3 kids in the end of the novel, and he's very violent towards his children. And when you act this way, are you allowed, and do you deserve to hope for a better tomorrow if you have done things like this? Who's entitled to a second chance and forgiveness?
So would you say the ending of the book is hopeful?
I do think it's hopeful. I mean, human beings make mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes, and that's why we also need opportunities to learn and grow from them, to get this shot for a better tomorrow, a shot to fight for it without being shamed by others, no matter how broken your past is. Because if you'd always be read through the things that have marked you in the past and have been hurtful to other people, then there's really no room where you can grow from there, or if you just aren't given that opportunity. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And kind of going off of that, what I think is interesting about all your books, My Cat Yugoslavia, Crossing, and now Bolla, is that you present queer characters who are not just victims. They're also kind of the ones who cause pain for others. They're complicit in that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe this is a little similar answer, because I just think that no one's perfect, and I like to think that my whole body of work, my whole all three books, but especially Bolla, is this moral investigation in the human mind, and what are you capable of if you are in the wrong place in a wrong time. And also, it's violence inside the queer community is a massive, huge problem. I mean, it's almost as if it's in some context, it's almost as if it's okay to exclude and discriminate, especially for example in the dating world. And then which is very absurd because inside the queer community, people are still fighting for the right to be equal. And in general, I do think that it's quite common that the wound in attempt to heal, to feel better, in the hope of getting somewhere better, in a better situation. And it's this cycle of violence that I keep going back to in all of my books. It's maybe it stems from a belief that as I said in the beginning, that I don't believe that anyone is just born evil. There's always something that has happened to you, something that has happened to you for you to act this way.
Absolutely. And there's also this theme in Bolla of like wanting to get your voice heard through writing. Arsim's biggest dream is to become an author. He finds a lot of comfort in the kind of dream of one day being a published author. How did that come about in your writing and become part of the book?
I mean, before I was a writer, my biggest dream in life was publishing a book. I went to study comparative literature because I wanted to be better at writing, and little did I know that was not a good idea, because it was very very far from fiction writing. But I think I remember saying to my friends that I just want to see my book in my favorite bookstore here in Finland, and that'll be enough, I said, and I don't need anything more. I just wanted to prove myself and other people that I can make my lifelong dream of becoming a writer a reality. And I was just like very determined, and I was just like, I can write a novel and I will get it published. And so I started working hard, and then it happened, and I signed with a publisher here, and then suddenly it took like a few years when I got to hold my book in my hands, and suddenly the reality of it, holding the novel, just felt really small. I remember sitting in a park with some friends that day, and I told them about all the work and all the worry, the sleepless nights and the tears and joys that are suddenly like compressed into this small single object, that it feels for some reason very disappointing. And they were just like, oh well, the satisfaction will come later, you're just in a difficult state of mind because this is all new to you, and blah blah blah. And then one of my friends spilled wine on the book, and I was just like, okay, perfect. But and I think that this emotion hasn't still really gone away, because when you are dreaming of something, when you have this desire, you're also very inspired and motivated to reach that something that you want. And I believe I speak at least for some people when I say that it's never as you imagined it when you get the thing that you want the most, and actually it becomes the opposite of it in a way, because the dream that just has become true is also the dream that you lost, because you lose the driving force I was talking about. You lose the thrill of the chase, the still the unfulfilled desire that you have. So you have to, in a way, replace your dream that has become true, that is also a dream that you have given away, with new dreams and new desires, to be able to get to that point again where when there's something that you want but that you don't have. And I think that, and then you keep moving to the next one, it becomes the cycle, and there's always the next dream and the next one. And I think that many human beings are just wired this way. And of course, it's been a fantastic ride being a writer and being published in all these foreign languages, but still it's something I need to do again and again. Every single time I start writing something new, that I have to see it as a dream first before being able to start the work. And there needs to be something that I'm not happy with. So maybe I need to, in my own writing or something, that I need to explore or investigate or so.
Very interesting. And what's striking is that there's not a lot of fiction published in the English language that's set in Kosovo. So this is a very sort of groundbreaking book in that sense. Why do you think this is? Do you feel like you have to be kind of the spokesperson? You're writing about a place where, the rest of the world doesn't really have that much information about?
I mean, I don't really know why that is. I've been trying to tell my publishers and agents and people in the book industry I meet that keep your eyes open. And there's a lot of magnificent writing set in Kosovo, but then it's, for some reason, it's a mystery to me how some voices, how some stories are found and what becomes something that people read. And like with the agents and with the publishers, it's such a big puzzle, really. And sometimes it feels like it makes no sense at all, and but I mean, I've never, as like with the spokesperson thing, I definitely feel that. I mean, I've never been comfortable with being a face or a spokesperson of anything, and I always stress this in interviews, because being given this label of being that someone who is someone who is suddenly a spokesperson, it feels like such a burden, especially for someone like me who never claimed to, give a voice to anyone else but a handful of characters in a fictional territory. And however, I am, maybe if I'm not comfortable with being a spokesperson, and maybe I could say that I'm comfortable with being an example from my point of view, and I have a right to a single point of view, and that's all I can do. And I've written books about places I come from, about places my family comes from, books that depict queer characters, all of whom I think are distinctive and unique individuals in their own right. And I believe in that for people outside fictional worlds too. And that's it.
Absolutely.
We're here to speak. We can speak for ourselves and whatnot, but it's a lot of pressure to put on a single writer to be this voice.
Absolutely, I agree. And many writers say that writing about history can restrain you. What do you think about this? It's a historical book in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand why many writers feel that, and it can restrain you. And this is a very big and good question. But in my case, however, it is not an um, a big artistic goal of mine to aim for, this full historical authenticity, because of a simple reason. I don't think that it can be done, because history is a collection of facts that is approved by a group of people. Another group of people might as well disagree with, and this is why history is also so full of um, opinions and misrepresentations and arguments and debate. And people in my family, for example, uh, and I think this is true for for many people, have a very strong sense of ownership to the history of Kosovo. And after like hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression under different rulers and regimes, it is completely understandable to have this need to have representations out there. But then, as a fiction writer, I I I can't write fiction thinking that now I'm not suddenly only speaking from one perspective, but from many perspectives, because that would really tie my hands. I can't get anywhere if I'm manipulated by something or someone bigger than just a single voice or just a single human mind, you know. And sometimes it's very hard for me to to because um, there are a lot of, some artists out there often say that with their work they wanted to, give a voice to the suppressed or depict the silenced or and these things. And it's always very hard for me to understand why a media outlet would, for example, say that in a headline, as they have said about my work, like, finally the immigrant writer in Finland is here and telling us, you know, uh, what immigrants here feel like and what's reality like for them. And because the suppressed and the silenced are not this like homogeneous groups with like similar thoughts and experiences. It's as, deep, and the world is as deep and vast as like every single other community. And I feel like I'm sometimes like, I have a lot of emotions about this. so I feel like I am sometimes unfairly made a voice of my respective cultures, something that I have always rejected, because I do believe that there are as many ways to be Albanian and Finnish as there are Albanians and Finns out there. And I'm a great example of that, I think, because in my reality, I mix the two languages, the two cultures, and also write books that mix like multiple different cultures and realities. And on to some extent, I do understand why this keeps happening to me, because my background mixes two countries and cultures that are, well, like, not the most familiar to out there. and I also I feel like I keep being very annoying with my responses regarding this matter by always rejecting all labels on this front. But it comes from a need to protect the integrity of my work. And that's why I never encourage anyone to read my work representatively. But then people will read the way they will read, and some of the reading is very different from mine, because when I read books, I never think that okay, this is a representation of this uh, this this kind of person, or this kind of history. I just want to be taken by the story and not think about that, okay, now I'm being taught something. But then you just have to accept that people read in a different way, and then just be at peace with that. But what I love about fiction, and the reason I keep writing fiction, is because I love making stuff up. like I love uh, writing, making the impossible possible, and the most unimaginable things, I make them reality. And it's the page is a place of freedom for me, and that's why I keep like protecting my relationship to it by saying this.
I love that. And so you were supposed to be here in the US for the publication of Bolla, but obviously the pandemic happened, your plans changed. How has writing been during COVID-19? Have you been keeping with it?
Well, it's maybe this is unsurprising, but like minimizing all social contacts and staying in didn't feel that difficult for me really. After all, I am, a writer and who works alone and in solitude, so I'm relatively used to it. But I mean, as an artist who is inspired by other people's, who's inspired by art, it's definitely staying inspired has been a lot more difficult when you haven't been able to really go to experience like live music or theater, which I'm a big fan of. And but also these past few years have been quite hectic for me, because for the past 7 years I published 3 novels, but then I worked on Bolla. I worked for almost 10 years. As I said, it took me 8 years to write this book, and I was writing these books simultaneously. So when I was, I thought that I have nothing to say in this story, then I would move on to the next story, and so on. And because I've been very busy and on the road a lot, when all of my events were canceled, like both inside and outside Finland, it forced me to take a break from public engagements and appearances, as well as social media. And it did me a lot of good, because I don't like to think of myself as this I'm not a motivational speaker or a speaker in, I mean, public engagements. Just sometimes they just appearances just give me the chills, and but of course it's an important part of this profession, and it's always a thrill and nice to engage with readers. And although I'm excited that we have found new ways to do these events, I'm of course a bit sad that I can't be there for the publication, because having a conversation with, like us now through a computer, it doesn't feel, as natural. Your like facial expressions come after like a second, and it's and sometimes, if you have if you have a live event with a bigger number of people watching it, then you just feel like sometimes you're speaking into in a void. And so I miss the conversations and the readers and other writers, and just being around book people. But it's working in these circumstances and during this time has been quite slow, actually. And in fact, I would say that the whole year has been rather, well, not unproductive, but it could have been more productive. And I still, yeah, it's something. Some people say that you should write something every single day, but I don't work like that. I don't believe in that necessarily, but sometimes you need not to write anything for a good while, and it's been a while.
Is there something you're working on anyhow?
I mean, I'm working on something. I mean, I don't know what that something is or when that something is going to be out. I don't even know whether this something is ever going to be something, but I'm trying something new. And I'm eager to see where this road leads. I'm trying to challenge myself again, but this time in a different way. Maybe try or mix like different genres more than I have, or not. Maybe not.
Very exciting. We're all very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Pajtim. That's all for the questions. I appreciate your time and great answers. And yes, Bolla is out now. Go get it. The link to order will be available. Thank you so
Thank,
much.
thank you, Kalle, and thank you so much for your insightful questions. And thank you also to everyone who's watching. And have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.